Welcome to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast. The P.A.S. Report provides an honest analysis on the critical issues that matter to you without the biased media filters. Here's your host, Professor Nicholas Giordano.
From the Fox News radio studios in Midtown Manhattan, it's the fastest growing radio talk show. Brian Kilmeade.
Hi, everyone. Welcome from 48th and 6th in Midtown Manhattan. Heard around the country, around the world. We're finishing our first week of 2024. So glad you're with us. It's going to be a banner year for the show and hopefully for you individually. On a different note, Nicholas Giordano back with us on the show. Nick, on the past, we've had John talking about academic things. And, man, what are your thoughts watching those three presidents talk 2 weeks ago and the fallout since?
Well, to me, it amazes me because it really shouldn't be that hard to condemn the calls for genocide against Jewish people. That's not a difficult thing to do, and yet these college administrators stumbled over themselves. I think Claudine Gay of Harvard was the most interesting case because she lasted over a month in her position, and there were a lot of people, over 500 professors as well as the Harvard board, signed a letter of support after the congressional testimony and after 50 accusations of plagiarism against her. And yet they still supported her as president. So that's the remarkable case, because what it represents is the entire problem in higher education, where you've seen this diversity, equity, inclusion model really take over instead of academic standards, academic integrity, meritocracy. And unfortunately, it diminishes our profession. It's an insult to our profession.
But you predicted this, and you think things are going to change for the better because of some stats that have come out that is alarming to the future of colleges in America.
Correct. Well, first, the DEI effect is real. Okay, we are witnessing the real-world consequences today, where we see that 38% of Americans believe patriotism, hard work, and faith are important. Compare that to 70% of Americans that felt those were important 25 years ago. You have standards that have been routinely lowered. In New York State, for instance, the New York State Board of Regents redefined what proficiency means after students perform twice below the national average. They redefined proficiency to meet what they deem as the new normal, so it shows what little faith they have in the student body. In Oregon, for instance, they passed a resolution to suspend high school graduation requirements where students have to demonstrate a proficiency in reading, writing, and mathematics until 2029. So we've seen standards drop out. You have 1 in 5 Gen Zers that now have a sympathetic view of bin Laden. 30% of them believe that bin Laden's ideas are a good contribution to the world. I mean, that's astounding.
And 72% support the Palestinians over the Israelis for people under 30.
Correct. And you see that a lot of the protests that we're witnessing are actually pro-Hamas protests. They're anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protests. So we see the destructive forces that are taking place and what higher education has bred that filtered out to other parts of society, where you have corporations with their DEI departments. And it costs companies billions of dollars in market value when they put in these DEI programs. But we are seeing a great American pushback start. And that's the important thing. You have 62% of Americans have little confidence in higher education today. 56% of Americans are now considering whether it's worth the cost to obtain a 4-year degree. You have nearly 50% of corporations that have stated that they are dropping 4-year degree requirements in 2024. States like Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania have dropped 4-year degree requirements for their positions. You have the donor class that has now pulled back their funding. So the message is crystal clear. The colleges need to clean up their act. They need to get back to the idea of academic integrity and producing productive citizens and informed citizens, or else they're going to face a really tough next 4 years.
So I just asked you this before we hopped on the air. You're a political science professor.
Correct.
So when you got hired at Suffolk, did they know who you voted for? Did they ask you if you're a conservative or a liberal?
No, there were no questions like that.
Did they tell you what your curriculum should be?
No, it's a different mindset at the community college because they're more in tune with reality. It's not that 4-year university bubble where everyone comes from the same background. So you think you would have been asked if it was like Hofstra or at NYU? Absolutely. I have little doubt about that. They may not have asked so overtly, but they do tend to look at political leanings, hence the reason that when you look at most college campuses, take sociology, for instance, number of left-leaning professors compared to right-leaning professors in sociology is about 66 to 1. If you look at anthropology, it's about 56 to 1. If you look at history, it's about 13 to 1. If you look at political science, it's not too bad, 6 to 1. So we're still outnumbered.
Right.
But at the community college, it's a little bit different. But you still have to deal. It's not to say that there's no far left elements that exist within a community college. Plus, if we look at Suffolk Community College, it still is part of the SUNY umbrella. So earlier this year, you and I spoke about it, where the SUNY powers that be decided that they wanted to put DEI requirements into every degree program. Regardless of what you're majoring in, students now have to go through this DEI indoctrination program. As far as the classroom goes,
like a competency on how white people suck.
Correct. I mean, that's what DEI is. It's instilling the victimhood mentality. It's rooted in anti-Americanism, and it's just simply lumping people into groups. And if you look at DEI itself, it's actually racist, because it has such low expectations of minorities. And we see it all the time when it comes to these standards.
Listen to the review after Claudine Gay resigned after being multiple examples of her plagiarism, let alone her testimony. Listen.
These plagiarism allegations where Claudine Gay has had to issue corrections, multiple corrections. Now, we should note that Claudine Gay has not been accused of stealing anyone's ideas in any of her writings. She's been accused of sort of more like copying other people's writings without attributions.
I can't even imagine what she's had to face. There are people who have come straight out and said that they believe that Claudine Gay, before the plagiarism allegations even came out, that they believe Claudine Gay was only appointed because she's Black, because she's a woman, but especially because she's Black.
Why are these elite colleges capitulating to it and essentially making it so uncomfortable for these women leaders that they have to step down to be replaced by white men?
And of course, the University of Pennsylvania president left right away without plagiarism allegations. But of course, she leaves after weeks of allegations, weathers the storm, and then resigns because she's Black.
And that's absolutely right. If you look at Elizabeth McGiff, I believe it is, but it was 4 days later she resigned from the University of Pennsylvania, yet Claudine Gay is nearly a month later.
McGill.
And McGill. And those that want to defend Claudine Gay, it's really embarrassing to themselves. I mean, listen, plagiarism is a cardinal sin within academia. And any one of my students that I catch plagiarizing fail the course immediately. If I caught them in over 50 incidents of plagiarism, they face academic disciplinary hearings, which could lead to expulsion or suspension. Shouldn't we have at least the same standards for a college president, but actually higher standards for a college president?
If I'm at Harvard and I got caught plagiarizing, I would say, give me the chance to go fix it, like you did the former president who is still on the faculty. But you overall, this was a wake-up call to people that aren't politically oriented. Nick, I know you think things will change. Do you think things will change in terms of the political positions among those who go to those schools? Or do you think things will balance out, they'll be more accountable, and this anti-Americanism will cease?
I think that the colleges and the university systems have to change. They have no choice. If they don't change, the entire college landscape shifts within 4 or 5 years, and a lot of the mid-tier schools will be done. Enrollment declines are already happening simply because of age demographics. Now you have people that don't want to rack up tens of thousands of dollars in student debt, so they're learning trades or they're going to community colleges, and they don't want their children and students don't want to be indoctrinated anymore. So, yes, they have to change. Whether or not they change, it remains to be seen, because as we stated with Claudine Gay, you still had 500 faculty members actually supporting her, telling her not to step down. And the second,
including the former president of the United States, Barack Obama.
Correct. And the second we accept plagiarism as an acceptable academic standard, we no longer have an education system. That's it. It's game over for the education system. I do believe that the donor class and the corporations have the biggest role to play, because if they're moving away from four-year degrees and the donor class isn't providing the funding, well, when money is involved, that's when colleges begin to change their behaviors.
Check him out on his own podcast, the P.A.S. Report. Nicholas Giordano, and try to take his class if you're in the New York area. Suffolk Community College, a political science professor, but he's also a great commentator. He's going to be at a town hall January 9th with Brett and Martha in Des Moines, Iowa, right? Oh, no, you're not. That's something else. That is, I read the wrong line. Sorry, Nick.
When things go sideways, you want to be prepared. Protect you and your family. And people are concerned. They might have to go for a long time without food, electricity. That's why I want to introduce you to 4patriots.com. Get preparedness products you could use now, and that could save your life later. My favorite is 4Patriots' new solar generator, the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. It uses the endless free power of the sun to power your lights, your TV, medical equipment, even run your fridge. Plus, it's expandable and comes with a free solar panel. Or you can pick up one of 4Patriots' best-selling survival food kits. Delicious tasting and designed to last for 25 years. They even have kits with real meat. And if the power's out, no worries. Just boil water over fire, simmer, and serve. You're going to enjoy a hot meal and stay safe in a crisis. More smart people than ever are finding 4Patriots. Over 2 million customers trust them, and you might have even seen them on TV. I had the folks at 4Patriots set up a special page for you at 4patriots.com/PAS so that listeners of this podcast can see this week's discounts and deals before they go away. Go to 4patriots.com/PAS, but you gotta hurry because the deals don't last long. So save more money, get peace of mind, and protect you and your family. Go to 4patriots.com/PAS.
Here's a headline for you. Harvard crisis signals broader fight over what a university should be, end quote. Nicholas Giordano joins me now. He's big on this subject. Nicholas, I've got a question for you. Should students have to sign statements, attend mandatory classes, use only approved language in order to get into a college or a business? Because that's the way it is now.
As someone that's been in the classroom for 20 years, the answer is absolutely not. I mean, when we look at the DEI agenda, it has done enormous harm to this country, and we've been reporting at Campus Reform the results. We're seeing them in real time. So if you look at the numbers, in New York State, for instance, the New York State Board of Regents redefined what proficiency means after New York State students performed twice below the national average when it comes to proficiency. In Oregon, they suspended graduation requirements, students demonstrating a proficiency in reading, writing, and mathematics until 2029. And the main justification for it is because it hurts students of color. It hurts minority students. And it shows the racism that's involved with the DEI agenda. This has actually decimated the higher ed education landscape because the standards have been dropped so low. And once you begin to justify the idea of plagiarism as a new academic standard, we no longer have an education system at that point.
DEI seems to me, taking the big picture here, to define America as a bad place. Do you have students coming into your classroom who regard America as a bad place because of what they've been brainwashed?
Well, my students are a different caliber. They don't openly come in with the anti-Americanism that we're seeing throughout the country, but we do know that DEI does foster anti-Americanism because that's where it's deeply rooted, and it's going to take a few years before it actually hits my classrooms. But my students know very little about the United States. But here's some shocking numbers. 38% of people today, Americans today, believe that patriotism, hard work, and faith are important values to have. Compare that to 70% in 1998. If you look at 1 in 5 Gen Zers have a sympathetic view of Osama bin Laden, and 30% believe that he has good ideas that contribute to the global framework. When you see numbers like that, you realize how toxic diversity, equity, and inclusion is as it's being driven. But there is pushback. There is a momentum that's going against the DEI movement, and I think that we are making gains on this.
Well, I noticed that Texas has just joined Florida in banning DEI at publicly funded colleges. So DEI seems to be in retreat, is it?
It is. And when you look at the DEI framework that's been set up throughout institutions, we are seeing the massive pushback. And it's coming from Texas, Florida, West Virginia, all states pushing DEI legislation, anti-DEI legislation. But more importantly, it's coming down to ordinary people where 62% of Americans have lost faith in four-year institutions. You have 56% of Americans now saying a four-year degree is no longer worth it. But the biggest thing is the employers, corporations. The employers, over 50% of employers today have stated that in 2024 they plan to do away with four-year degree requirements. States like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Virginia are doing away with four-year degree requirements. Donors are pulling back their money, and the message is clear. We want competent, informed, productive citizens, not ideological zealots that the education system is producing.
Nicholas Giordano, thanks for joining us this morning. An important message. We appreciate it. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast.
Have a good one. Bye.
Be sure to rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast. so you'll never miss an episode. Also, visit PASreport.com and follow us on Twitter at PAS Report.